All right. So, hi. It's been a while since I made a video. Um, I started playing again pretty regularly lately after the Geddon. The Geddon didn't go well. I think that if you saw the um, the statistics regarding the conversions, Dredge was deck that didn't convert at all, right? I was one of those that was stuck at day one. After the Geddon, I was kinda bitter. I didn't like my performance. I think that was one of my worst performance ever. Um, so I started like looking if I could change something in the deck or if I just had to switch. Um, just a quick recap. Lately we got a very good card, which is the State Wayfinder number 528, which is non-greater. And I think that deck has undergone a lot of changes thanks to the Rainbow Lens and Momentary Blinks. So today I'm gonna explain how I got to the most recent list, what are the differences, what you can change, what you can keep, and yeah, I'm just gonna go over a little bit about how the deck is structured. So after the Geddon, I was sure that the playstyle of the deck needed to change, right? I was always a very strong believer in regards to the fact that Dredge should be played as a full combo deck, right? Trying to be as little interactive as possible with the opponent. But I think that that time has passed, right? Before, this was when you were playing against decks like Glee. Now, a lot of the opponents have a less strong, but at the same time more interactive game plan. And I don't see why you shouldn't be doing this too. So after the Geddon, I sat down and I decided to have a complete overhaul of the list. And I came up with a list that I think plays through Graveyard 8 better than Spy, which is already a big high toll, but you're gonna see later why. It's able to respond in a better efficient way, I would say, in a more efficient way to many threats in the meta, and as a real mid-range plan. And of course, this list is leaning much more on you to the bone. So I can safely say that this is now a more mid-rangey combo deck than the last Dredge's list, right? And I must say that I've been finding myself really, really um, good with this list because you can take your time. At the same time, you're more resilient, right? You don't have those ends where you just jam your combo and if the opponent has a relic opportunities, you're dead, right? You can play around Gravity pretty easily. You still lose to decks like Elves or Right Tide, but my philosophy behind this is I don't want to respect those decks because there's no point in trying to have a sideboard super set on those and to basically lose more efficient and more impactful sideboard cards for the decks that can change my percentage in regards to win rate more. Elves is a problem for Dredge, always has been. There are ways that you can actually combat elves. I'm gonna show you what those are later. And I tide is the same, but I don't think that at the moment with their play rate you should respect them. FYI, against at the Geddon, I played against two White Tides and two Elves, and I won against two White Tides and one Elves. The actually my last game before I was like kicked out of the day two bracket, let's say, was actually against an Elves. So yeah, um, these things happen. You can get unlucky with the matchups. There's there's nothing wrong with that. So as you can see, the current list it's much different than the past lists. Starting with the mana base, you can see that we have all those settlement and colony garden there, right? But at the same time, we're playing all the full set of cyclers. Um, one thing that I would like to show you here is one, Molten Gatekeeper, which has become pivotal in regards to how the deck plays. And two, I want to show you between sideboard and mainboard how many cards actually are not good if milled with, for example, a Sudden Wayfinder. As you can see, all the cards are okay to be milled outside one, which is Malawan Trumbull. You can see that we're not playing Exume. That's because I don't want to have any card that when milled, I'm like, oh, okay, I should have milled that. Malevolent Rumble is the only exception because it's so strong. But I want a stable list, right? And I believe that this is one of the most stable ones that you can play. So let's go over a little bit of the deck in general, and then we can discuss potential inclusions or exclusions. So one thing that I learned from the Gaddon, where I actually played Colony Garden, a full set of Colony Garden, and a full set of Old Settlement, plus also the other Springleaf Drumlins, is first Colony Garden is broken. Like having that body just for a land drop is very, very good. You gotta be careful about how many tap lands you're playing, but I would say it's one of the best lands you can play at the moment. And if I could go up more, I would probably. And I will try to test out if it's possible. Second, Old Settlement is needed in a deck like this because Molten Gatekeeper requires red, right? And thanks to Old Settlement, you can have up to 6 red sources. And this is really needed because it's not rare that you go in a turn like Molten Gatekeeper, then Scrap or Mud, then another Scrap or Mud, right? So you need a lot of red in this list, and you can access it pretty easily with Old Settlement. It's also important to keep the red lands, the Wooded Region and Geothermal Block, because those can be, let's say, your starter lands. So you can go like red, Molten Gatekeeper, then tap the Molten Gatekeeper in order to get another red. It's important because sometimes in older lists where I wasn't playing the like true red sources, I was getting stuck on colors because I had nothing to tap. Regarding Seal of the Settlement, you can also use it to cast off-color spells like Ray of Revelation, a Momentary Blink from your sideboard. But one thing that I would like to also include is a lot of people have told me that the bounce lands are good inclusions. That might be it. And also, I think that including a third Colony Garden, maybe instead of one Old Settlement, could be good, especially if we're not playing the Momentary Blinks in the sideboard. Regarding the millers, I think 15 is fine. You could go down to 14. Droid is by far the worst one. But the thing is that if I were to cut a Droid, I would probably put another land to go to 16 lands, either probably to have a Golgari Rot farm, right? Still, Droid gets back the land that you're playing, so might still be good to include just the Droid instead of the other millers. Still, I think that I would try to cut another Circle Down Droid and include another Golgari Rot farm, because including a bounce land means basically to include 2 lands. So it could be good. In general, having 15 lands and 15 millers means that we are very solid in regards to our mulligan rates, right? And we can also be more aggressive. This is also one of the reasons why maybe I would include another land instead of another circle, because that way we can be even more aggressive. During the APT, right, I think I mulled to 3 and I still won. But so this is the deck that can really grind if and can really regain your mulligans if you want, thanks to how much cards you, let's say, draw in a way, thanks to milling them. But yeah, I would say that one potential inclusion is cutting 1 Droid for 1 Golgari Rot farm to go to 14 millers and 16 lands. So talking about Molten Gatekeeper, Gatekeeper does a lot for this deck. I will mention that this is taken from the Mono Red Dredges list, right? So Natalino91 is probably the one that discovered this. And I included this because actually it's a very good mid-range piece too, right? It's a 2/3 body that, if not removed, is gonna keep dealing damage. One key reason why Molten Gatekeeper is good is because probably the cheap damage that we get from Molten Gatekeeper is gonna be relevant when we bring back a giant, right? We can take our time. We can unearth 1 or 2 Molten Gatekeepers, deal 2 to 4 damage, attack with the Molten Gatekeepers, and after that, we are gonna be able to kill our opponent with a giant that's like 12, for example. And this is very relevant, right? Because this cheap damage helps us to not unearth another giant. This helps us into not having to, well, die because we got our graveyard exiled once, right? And we can only bring back one giant, and that's not enough. It's very important that the Gatekeeper is also a 2/3. You can block ninjas, right? Um, and in general, most of the time it's just gonna stay there, right? You don't even need it to attack when we are unearthing. But the 2/3 body is also relevant because you can attack with it. Sometimes if the opponent has like a very dinky creatures, like a 1/1, you cannot attack with Scrap Workmat, right? Because it's like it's gonna die before the end step, and you cannot dread return it. You cannot use it to dread return. But for example, Molten Gatekeeper is decent. Molten Gatekeeper is the reason why we play so many Old Settlements, but it's a very flexible card. I think that it's a good inclusion, and it's, if not a mainstay, it's gonna be present in a lot of lists from now onwards. I'm a bit, let's say, ashamed that I'm starting to play it even only now, because I feel like it's a very good card, and I was very surprised of how good it was. So let's talk about what we're not playing now. Exume is not a card that you're gonna see either in the sideboard or in the main board, but you could play it in the sideboard at the moment. Exume is strong because it lets you play around two things: counter spells and graveyard aid. But there are better ways to play around graveyard aid first, and second, there are better ways to play around counterspell. So Exume does two things poorly, while at the same time being a rumble-like card. Um, don't get me wrong, Exume is an extremely strong card in regards to power level, but being a sorcery without flashback, it's really, really too much to justify playing it. Like, in general, I think that at the moment the only card in the format that has a high enough power level to be played in Dredge, and that has these conditions, right? So doesn't have the usual conditions, which is flashback, card or slash creature card or slash land card, is Malevolent Rumble. There's no other card that could be played that has that much that high power level that could be played in, that justify playing it. In general, Exume is not strong anymore because of one key reason. Troll Exume, it's not a strong play. People can play around it. People are not too threatened by 6/5 on turn 2, especially if you're on the draw, right? So yes, might have a spot in the sideboard, but I choose not to play it because it's one of those cards that say, yeah, I'm gonna give you a very big spike when you see it, when you see me in the hand, but at the same time, when I'm not in your hand and I'm in your graveyard, I do completely nothing, and that is too much for a card like to be played, right? It's extremely bad. One very peculiar thing that you can see regarding the sideboard is that we're playing one Lotte Giant. Lotte Giant is somewhat clunky played in 4 in many matchups, especially at the game 1, because in game 1 you're not gonna face that much graveyard aid. So yes, this Lotte Giant gets basically sided in 50% of the matchups. The same as before when Lotte Giant was one of the first side out in 50% of the matchups, so we just switched a little bit for basically the 4 to the bone. You need to play the 4 in the 75 because you need to have 4 when you're facing out a graveyard aid. But because we're now a slower deck, a more mid-rangey deck, we can have 3 and say, okay, I'm gonna take my time to look for the Lotte Giant. Even if I don't dread return on turn 4, it's okay. I can dread return on turn 5 or 6. I felt sometime that I didn't have the 4th Lotte Giant, but it's a choice that you can make. Regarding the cards that are in the sideboard that probably are a mainstay at the moment, or at least that won't be switched until the meta changes, Coffin Purge is there mostly for Spy, right? But it's also good for other like Flicker or Ephemerate based decks, or in general also the Mirror. Instant Grudge is there for artifact based strategy to play around artifact based graveyard 8. You could think about putting another one in if you see a lot of artifact based strategy in your area. And As we talked about before, the 4-slotted giant is there because you need 4 in the 75, but you don't want to be too clunky. You don't want your main board game 1 to be too clunky. In regards to the rest of the sideboard, Alcon Harvest and Molten Gatekeeper are for sweepers, and also to have a even stronger game plan centered around Molten Gatekeeper. Molten Gatekeeper gets sided in a lot of matchups, like for example fairies, right? Because Molten can block the ninjas, right? And if they can block the ninjas, you completely cut off their draw engine. Alcon Harvest is there for all the sweepers. It's also combos very well with Molten Gatekeeper. Think about the fact that 2 Molten Gatekeepers plus an Alcon Harvest means 5 damage, which is not something that you should like laugh at. Rare Revelations and Momentary Blinks are the ones that are the most uncertain about, right? There are white cards. Blinks are there for like all those decks where either they're playing a huge amount of graveyard hate, right? So you're gonna need to basically multiply your giant just by using 1 card. Or for example, against decks that are going super fast, like for example, High Tide or Elves. There are potential switches, both for High Tide and Elves, but I think that Momentary Blink is the thing. It's similar to Exume, right? So it's something that can go against a lot of decks. Does help when you're already ahead. Somewhat it helps seal the deal, but it's very, very general. Ray of Revelation is just there for fairies and boggles. So if you don't want to respect those, you can take it out. Okay, so lastly, I just want to talk about potential sideboard cards that you could include if you want to fight a specific deck. We already talked about Exume if you want to play around Graveyard 8 more, but I don't think you should include it. Display is there for all the removal, Graveyard Hate removal stuff, right? So Trap and Charm or Crypt Incursion, you can play it, but it has the same problems of Exume. Masked Vandal could be a very good scam plan together with Instant Grudge to basically Ponza your opponent that's playing a lot of artifact lands. I don't think it has a spot in the sideboard at the moment. One card that I wanna instead talk about a lot is Subterranean Shambler, because it's a very, very good answer to Elves, right? Together, for example, with Crypt Arts, but Subterranean Shambler does this when it's basically brought back with Dread Return. So Subterranean Shambler is a 4-cost with Echo that deals 1 damage to all the creatures without flying when it enters and when it leaves. So you can actually wipe the board twice with 1 Dread Return, once when it enters and once when it leaves. It's similar to Fang Dragon. The only thing is that you don't need Subterranean Shambler in your end to play it. You can also Dread Return it. So I think it's something that I want to try if I see a lot of Elves. Fang Dragon is still the most flexible option because it's flying creatures, but the problem is that you need to have it in your hand. So it has that limitation. Bajoka Bog is just a very good land that can remove the graveyard. And lastly, I want to talk about Crippling Fatigue and Death Spark. I think these are the only 2 mana, somewhat efficient cards that can remove stuff when it's very little. I think Crippling Fatigue can have a spot now because you're seeing a lot of Gutter Snipes, a lot of ninjas, a lot of fairies. Similar, Death Spark can also kill a lot of fairies and also a lot of Prism of Titania. I know that saying that Pain Tree to remove a creature that's in a deck that try to deal 0 damage to the face is not very good, but I think that the problem with Gutter Snipe is that it stays there for an indefinite amount of time and you cannot remove it. If you could remove it, you could just know yourself to infinity and then remove it. And usually when you can get rid of 1 Gather Snipe, you're good because their damage output goes down incredibly. The only problem is that Gather Snipe usually is put down, and after Gather Snipe is put down, they just vomit their hand with Fire Blast and Lava Darts onto your face. But if you can survive that, it's very good. Okay, so this is the end of the video. If you have questions, just put them in the comments. And nothing. Thank you for watching and goodbye. Bye.